Kia ora koutou, nau mai, haere mai, ki tēnei hui, I tēnei rā. Good day, everyone. Welcome to this webinar this morning. E mihi ana atu ki a koutou, no Pakitane, no Inia oku tipuna, e noho ana ki Tamaki Makoro. Ko Haere Khan toku ingoa, no reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Greetings, everyone. By way of introduction, just to let you know, my ancestors come from a place called Pakistan and India, but I live in Tamaki Makoro, Auckland. My name is Haere Khan, and I welcome you all this morning. Today is exciting as the webinar is all about practical tips and tricks about utilizing M365 and all its innovations, which are being released monthly, weekly, and sometimes even daily. And you can benefit from them just by being a Microsoft customer subscriber. So at this point, some housekeeping. Your microphones have been muted, and you can unmute to ask questions in the Q&A session. Please, of course, use the chat in Teams to ask questions, and we will follow up on those. This session is being recorded and will be available afterwards for your viewing pleasure. We will also post a copy of the presentation for your reference. So, this webinar comes to you from Kinetics, which is New Zealand's most awarded IT company. I represent Kinetics' professional services arm called Cambium, and we exist to help organizations achieve their goals in an uncertain digital world. So the format for this morning is as follows. Firstly, we will have Lauren Nobbs from Data, who will set the scene and provide a summary of 3 specific tools that are at your disposal in Microsoft 365. It is useful to know that Data is New Zealand's leading technology distributor with over 30 years of local experience. Next up will be Ben Fish from Cambium, who will show us practical examples of how at least 2 clients benefited and saved considerable sums of money utilizing the said 3 tools in M365. Now, using one of these tools, you, the audience, will then be able to schedule a 15-minute catch-up with either Ben or myself in the coming weeks, just by clicking on a link. And finally, we will answer some questions and wrap up. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce Lauren Nobbs from Lauren Nobbs, actually. See, I did that, Lauren. I was telling Lauren that I'm going to get the surname wrong because I know somebody called Paul Hobbs. So Lauren Nobbs from Data. Take it away, Lauren.
Awesome. Thanks, Haere. So Data and Microsoft produced a report last year which focused on SMBs in ANZ, and this report highlighted how in early and peak stages of the pandemic, SMBs were mostly focused on survival, cutting costs, and ensuring that their employees could work remotely. Now many SMBs are in a place where they're revisiting their technology choices to see that they have made the right decisions and have the right systems in place, and that they are getting the maximum value from their software to achieve their long-term goals. So in this report, we found that SMBs will prioritise investment and technology choices over the next few years with 4 key objectives. And that is enhancing their digital security, so focusing on cybersecurity to prevent malicious attacks and prevent their vital data assets. Growing their business and innovating, so continuing to drive growth and innovation by increasing their spend on automation, low-code and no-code tools. Empowering talent through modern work, so SMBs will continue to invest in collaboration solutions that help their employees be able to work from home. And improving business efficiency, so having one platform on which they can run their business from end to end, and SMBs are able to then reduce complexity and avoid unnecessary costs and overheads. And this is exactly what the Business Premium offer is. It's a comprehensive Microsoft 365 solution that's designed for SMBs and equips you with the tools you need to work productively, efficiently, and securely. And by utilizing the tools within Business Premium, you can reduce operational costs by automating your business processes and removing redundant solutions, and also improve the collaboration experience for your customers and partners. So in this webinar, we're focusing on 3 key products that are part of the Business Premium offer that help your business to achieve this and to work more efficiently. And so that is Microsoft Forms, Microsoft Bookings, and the Microsoft Power Platform. Microsoft Bookings is an app that simplifies how you schedule and manage appointments with your customers and partners. And so by using Bookings to schedule your meetings, you can completely remove the back and forth hassle of trying to work out times that both parties are available, which is often a time waster and quite frustrating. So with Bookings instead, you can send your customer or your partner a link to your Bookings page where they're able to see all the times that you are available in their own time zone, and then choose which time works for them. And it completely integrates with your Microsoft Outlook calendar, so it only shows time that you're available. And you can configure separate settings in your Bookings calendar too, to control in what hours of the day people can book meetings with you, how much lead time you need, and all of that detail. In Bookings as well, you're also able to create preset services. So that might look like a 1-hour in-person meeting or a 15-minute Teams quick phone call, or something specific to your business like a consulting session or project kickoff. Microsoft Forms is a platform where you can easily create digital surveys, quizzes, and polls, and other types of forms using either a web browser or your mobile device. And you can easily share these forms with internal and external recipients and see the responses as soon as they're submitted. And the responses you can see in the Forms app or export them to Excel for further analysis if you need. And so by using Forms, you enable your company to move away from using paper-based forms to gather information from your customers, and instead can provide a secure digital platform for creating forms and sharing them with your team. And that provides a better experience for your customers as well, as they no longer need to print a paper form and fill it out and then scan it back to you. They can do that all easily on whichever device they want to use. And as soon as they submit the results, they're immediately available for you to access. Forms also integrates with the other Microsoft 365 applications, so you can use Forms alongside Microsoft Power Automate, which we'll talk a bit about more later. And you can use that to create an automated workflow. So after a form is submitted, it can trigger 1 or more actions to happen automatically. So for example, you could create a form for an expense approval or a leave request, and then use Power Automate to trigger an automated approval workflow that then sends that request to a manager in email or Teams for them to approve. Forms is also integrated with Excel, so you can create a Microsoft form from Microsoft Excel, and then so when the responses are submitted, they are automatically imported into an Excel spreadsheet, and that saves your team time, as they no longer need to go through the form results and then manually get those answers and input them into a spreadsheet, as that will all happen automatically. The last product is Power Platform. So Power Platform is a whole suite of automation and AI tools, and the ones we'll be focusing on is Power Platform, is Power Apps and Power Automate, which bring low-code and no-code development and workflow tools to business users. And they enable you to create solutions for yourself or for the company that help you streamline business operations and improve customer and business outcomes. So Power Apps is a low-code development platform where you can easily create or build custom web and mobile applications, and do so without needing to write any code. And then with Power Automate, you can create automated workflows to automate any repetitive business processes. So both Power Automate and Power Apps empower employees and your business to create solutions to help you make your business operations more efficient and productive. I'm now going to hand over to Ben, who's going to talk about how Kinetics have used these tools for your customers.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. I am going to just switch up the sharing, as it were, and share up my screen itself, because I'm going to be dipping in and out of different bits. The first thing I wanted to do is to just thank a couple of the clients that have let us share their work that we've done with them today. So one of those is Deaf Aotearoa. As you'll see here on the search, they're a national organisation that represents the voice of deaf people and a national service provider for deaf people in New Zealand, and also CS&Co. And you'll see here they're New Zealand's largest distributor of beauty and fragrance products. Okay, before we get into some of the examples for them, I just want to talk a bit about not knowing. Okay, so what do we not know? Well, first of all, do you know how many apps that you've actually got within Office 3 or Microsoft 365? These are the ones that I see. If you're wondering how you get to those, you go into the browser, you go to office.com, and once you're signed in, there's an app launcher in the top left corner, and it shows you what you've got access to. They can actually be controlled. You don't actually have to give access to everything to everyone, and have a bit of a scramble or free for all or no control over what people are doing. But I think there's something like 20 just in this list alone. Now, all of these have one thing in common. They're constantly evolving. Haida mentioned it at the start. And there are even apps within apps. So taking Teams as an example, not only can you chat, but you've got the actual, I suppose, main purpose of Teams, the Teams function, the collaborative workspaces, but there are umpteen other apps that you can add in. In fact, even within the calendar app, you can schedule meetings, but you can schedule and host webinars like we're doing today, and even bigger events called live events within there. So there's so much scope to do things that I guess we maybe just don't know about and need to explore or find out more around. Right. And coming back to that in terms of the evolvement and how they constantly change, I did a wee bit of a calculation. I looked over the last 12 months of updates that were presented in Microsoft's Message Center, and on average it worked out there were 40 plus posts a month. So that's really 40 plus sort of updates or bits of advice around the apps that exist and the services that are there within Microsoft 365. Of course, that should probably be inspiring us with light bulb moments, as it were. But sometimes it's a bit different. We want to turn those lights off and just sit in the dark, as it were, and just ignore what's going on, I suppose. So evolution. So of course, we've definitely got a bit beyond just the spear, as it were. And for some of us, we probably think we're pretty smart going about with a pen and paper, as it were, and the clipboard and making notes and going back and filling in stuff on a system back at our desk. But even that's a bit out of date, I'd suggest today. Right. Even if you just look at Word in terms of its own evolvement. So this here, I'm actually on the 2023 April version. That's what the 2304 means. And I can guarantee if I go into it in about 7 days' time, I'll probably be on the 23 May edition as well. Now, of course, that generally means updates. Now, this certainly isn't the updated version. But that probably looks familiar to most people who've used Word over the last sort of 10 years, the ribbon environment, as it were. Now, this is the very latest that I've got, that 2304 version, the April version. Now, feast your eyes on those, as it were, and see if you can spot any differences. You don't have to feedback what you spot, whatever else, because I'll point those out. But basically, even on here, the Home tab has 4 additional commands on there, and the ribbon actually has 3. So it's a real challenge for us to keep up on those. A lot of people will go and hover over the commands and try and find out more, but equally, a number of us will just go, hey, let's just ignore what's right in front of our face. And just carry on the way we have done for, I don't know, the last decade or whatever it may be. Now, one of these new things is called Share, or relatively new, and that takes the sharing of attachments to a different level. In fact, you don't share attachments anymore. You still can, of course. It means you can share links so people can be looking at the live file, in real time potentially, but you can put controls on it so they can only view it and not edit it. Okay, so I want to share some real world examples with you. Those couple of clients that I mentioned, Def Aotearoa and CS&Co. And also, ourselves at Kinetics, we use all of this stuff. It's saved us heaps in time. Time equates to dollars as well, of course. So I'm going to go through some of those. Okay, so first of all, bookings. Now a bit of background on it. I think the original intention from Microsoft was it was really looking at the small business, such as the hairdresser, to make it easy for the client base to go and have a place to actually book stuff. But the use can be much wider. So let's bring up my example here. Okay, and first of all, Haida pointed out earlier on, you can actually book us to discuss anything you want to talk about in relation to today, or it could be beyond that, of course. So we'll share these links a bit later on. They're already in the chat, but we'll share it again with you later as well via email. But if I want to book Haida, I can simply go to his bookings page. He set it up that I can have a 30-minute discussion with him, but there could be other services as well. Maybe he's got a whole half day he can spend with me, or whatever it might be. I can choose his dates from his calendar. So notice on here, I can't get him first thing in the morning. He's got other stuff going on the morning of Wednesday, May the 31st, but I can certainly go in and book him at any of those available times. Okay, Heidi, you can probably go and delete this one afterwards. I don't think we need to keep it. But if I go and choose next in there, it's picked up some detail about me. I'm just going to go and choose book. And there we go. I've booked that time with Haida. That's going to pop up, notify him and let him know all about that. Now, in terms of clients that are actually maximizing that, not just to book themselves in, as it were, or give their sort of client-based customers the opportunity to book themselves, you can actually set up services that apply to your business. Now, some of you will have come across this if you are a Kinetics Care client, is you actually book your flight plan and your security awareness sessions from here. Okay, and quite clever stuff happens in the background. It goes and looks at who the staff are that can actually deliver that, and it notifies them, it books them at the time that you have selected, and it can do all sorts of other clever bits in the background. I'll talk a bit more about the glue, as it were, that really transforms what you're doing and takes it to the next level. Right. So coming to Def Aotearoa, that client that I mentioned. Now this is very much in its infancy, but they're looking to book their deaf awareness sessions, or at least let their client base, as it were, book deaf awareness sessions, whether they want them for an hour on site virtually or 2 hours using the booking system. And some of that glue that goes on behind the system, I'll just let you know, is this is not only going to record the booking and book the person who's going to deliver it, it's actually going to go on and notify the finance team to produce a proper quote. Once that quote's attached to the record that's been created in the background in SharePoint, it's going to get processed, approved, and then sent to the client so they can go and sign off on that. And, they know they're good to go and deliver that session. In fact, it takes it right through to billing process, but there's still some manual interventions to approve, do those checks and balances, so it's not just an end-to-end, no human touch. We can still have that human touch in there that we, tend to rely on and want to do those balances and checks, as I pointed out. Moving on to forms. So Laura mentioned some examples of what you can use it for: client feedback, staff feedback, quizzes, surveys. Here's a few that I've worked on with clients. So questionnaires, I'll show you one of those very shortly. But for one of our legal clients, it's about their client opening and matter opening processes. Again, it's stopped that back and forth of them trying to gather information via email. They've now got a form that could be as simple or as complex as their needs require, so they can gather the information on it. In fact, they've actually done a couple of language versions. There's an English language version and there's a Chinese language version that has been produced. They're all using Microsoft Forms. Now, coming back to Def Aotearoa, they use forms as well. One of those is actually to book in what they do on a yearly basis called taster classes associated with New Zealand Sign Language Week. But they also use it to actually get their membership, give the opportunity to members to join as a member, but also for the members to update their details as their contact details, wants, needs, requirements change. Again, I'll just switch over to the examples of that. Okay, so here's one first that we use at Kinetics. So I'm just going to go through it. You'll see various fields. I've pre-filled it in so you don't have to look at my slow typing, as it were. It's an example of a form, so it doesn't have to be text that you're gathering. There can be choices, there can be number feedbacks, you can do star ratings, all this sort of stuff. Maybe you want to get feedback about a service you've provided, all that stuff, so you can make it really nice and handy as well. Okay, and finally, I get the option to submit. You can do various controls, so they can just be internally available, but they can be external as well. And coming to that example from Def Aotearoa, here it is, their taster class registrations. Basically, they run this up each year. It's usually around April, May time. Now, in a couple of weeks' time, they probably don't want this available to the public, as it were, so they can simply just say it's ended for now. Next year, when they need it again, they just run it up. And again, there's a bit of glue that's joining this all together with other things they do in the background. It takes this submission, it takes the information out of it, puts it into a SharePoint list, and they then go and process the booking. And that goes all the way from scheduling a tutor right through to the tutor getting a timetable on their mobile phone where they can see where they're delivering sessions, and also post-session they can actually record their mileage claim as well, all via the Power Platform, but more about that in a moment. So coming back to so before I go on to the next slide, so here's some of the glue, as it were, the glue that sort of joins these systems together. The official name is connectors, and connectors exist in Power Automate. So that's where you can build automations, as the name suggests. And this is just some of the out-of-the-box ones that are available to us if we're actually creating a form. So you'll see here, it could be I could create a task in Planner based on the form and post to Teams, all sorts of different bits. It can go to email, it can go into SharePoint, record a response. That's what we're doing at Def Aotearoa with their booking form. All sorts of clever stuff you can do. So these are some of the out-of-box Power Automate options, but you can build your own. You can get us to help you build them. We can put that glue and those connections in place to make you streamline your processes and improve things. Okay, so our last bit is around maximizing all this stuff. So that really is looking at those bits of glue that there are. Now, in terms of information, you can gather information via bookings, you can gather information on your forms, but if you want to review it afterwards, you tend to take that information into a database. So that's where you can use SharePoint. Easy to set up databases in there. If you've got any Excel skills and you've ever set up an Excel spreadsheet, columns and rows, as it were, or a table in Word, you're probably going to be able to set up an equivalent version in SharePoint to capture data, record it, manage it, track it, whatever it needs to be. So there's some examples there. I'm sure some of those will be familiar to things that you do within your organization, or at least colleagues do. But I'm going to take you to one that we've worked with CS & Co. on, other clients as well, a visitor sign-in. Now, if you've ever visited the Kinetics premises over recent years, you've probably come across the visitor sign-in because we've got one ourselves. It isn't one of these $15,000 systems purchased from a vendor. It's one that we've built in-house using those Microsoft 365 tools. Now, we started on that journey because we wanted to capture information when COVID started in terms of meeting those compliance regulations that the government, advised us we needed to follow, as it were. but we've certainly moved away from it being for that purpose. And it's also a way to move in from that paper sign-in book. Now, one thing I did have a bit of feedback from a client I met with a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, what we love about the sign-in book versus the $15,000 system that we've been quoted is the $15,000 system is in a kiosk that is bolted to the floor. Whereas the sign-in book, we can pick it up and run out the building and do a roll call if there's an emergency. Well, I'd probably suggest if reception's on fire, you're not going to be picking up that sign-in book. Now, if you've got it recorded using Microsoft 365, the people who need access to the information to do the roll call can simply access it from their mobile phone. Okay, so no need to try and grab a device. Most people have got their mobile phone on them, even if it is just picking it up off their desk or it's already in their bag or pocket. Now, CS and Co, this is how theirs actually look. I'll bring you into the real deal as well, so you can see it in a moment. But basically, they choose what they want to display on there. So it actually cycles through a line of their different products. So they've made it, really fit in with their brand, as it were. Now, some of the benefits, before I go and show you it can evolve as they need it to. So as their sort of health and safety regulations that they want to give out to visitors change or evolve, they can go and change it. As they want to put new images of their product lines on the sign-in app, they can go and change that. Now, if they don't feel confident enough to do that, they can come to us and we can update it in a timely fashion. It helps them meet their compliance regulations as well. Once someone has signed in, it does that expected stuff you'd expect it to. It goes and emails the person that's being visited, or at least someone who can pass that message on. Not everyone's got email. They've got warehouse staff that don't. Okay, and also we can limit the data retention. Basically, 90 days after a record is recorded, it gets wiped. But it can meet whatever your compliance regulations. Now, I've mentioned a bit about cost. That vendor specific system that one of my clients was telling me about was $15,000. At a fraction of that cost if you're doing it within the Microsoft 365 environment. So let's go and have a look at that. Okay, so here we are. This is the real thing. Normally they actually have it running up on a tablet, so it fits out the screen. It's on the front desk, as it were in reception. Once someone chooses to sign in, they just have to fill out the boxes. You'll see there's a bit of smarts in there. Once you fill out one box, the other boxes appear. And I've pre-filled the data again, so you don't have to see how shoddy my typing is. And you'll see we've got those terms and conditions in there. Acknowledgement. And then once I've acknowledged, I can submit that and it will go and email the relevant party that I'm visiting and they'll come and get me. Notice there it's back to the sign-in screen. So, either a visitor can sign out if they need to or a new visitor can sign in. Just to show you a bit about what's going on in the background, as it were. So what we've got is any visits are recorded into SharePoint. That's how it's been set up there. So here we go. And you'll see that compliance bit we've got on there in terms of not holding on to people's data. So it's going to automatically get deleted. It tells me it's going to be deleted. And some of that glue behind the scenes, the Power Automate, will actually go and tidy that up when it comes to the 22nd of the 8th there. No manual need to do that. Okay, so that incorporated a few things. I'm just going to bring us back to a slide to go into a bit more about those. So it uses Power Apps. That's front end where you're seeing this and you're recording the information. It utilizes Outlook. That's how it's sending the email to who we're visiting so they know and can come and greet the person at reception. Okay, it's using SharePoint because we do want to keep a record of the data. We do want to be able to do that roll call if there's an emergency and we've got to evacuate. And it's using Power Automate to make sure that the data is cleansed, as it were, that we remove the stuff after 90 days that we no longer need to keep. Okay, so coming back to our evolution, as it were, so we'll see there we've certainly gone from the clipboard. We've got the tablet you know, the mobile device, the laptop, we can run up all of those systems on any of those devices. So whether it's your bookings, it's the forms, it's the Power App, it's the SharePoint, whatever it might be, you can access them from any device. You know, it's device agnostic, I think we might call it. Now, just to finish off, you know, one of my earlier slides, it didn't say what is not known, it said not knowing. So, you know, one thing about Microsoft, they're starting to bring in a lot of AI features. There've been some already. In fact, in PowerPoint, you may have come across the slide designer, where you start chucking a couple of objects into a slide, some text and a picture, and it goes and suggests, hey, this is how good it could look, as it were. So you don't have to think quite so hard, as it were. Now, that sort of technology is coming in everywhere. Microsoft are launching it in terms of Microsoft 365 with something we call Copilot. Now, I don't have access to that yet. It's not quite there for us to use, but I just wanted to show you, you know, a bit about how AI sort of works, and it differs from some traditional stuff. So, you know, usually when we've got a query, what do? We probably go and Google it, you know. What is not knowing, or how do I do this? Let's go and Google it, as it were. So let's take a wee look at that. Okay, now I'm not going to Google it. I'll go and Google it in a moment and just show you what the difference is, but everyone knows how to Google, I'm sure. You know, what I've got here is within the Edge browser, you know, the Microsoft browser, the latest update to that, I now have this icon with the big B on it that it calls Discover. Now, this utilizes ChatGPT, Microsoft owned ChatGPT, as it were, for us to actually get, you know, different stuff from the usual web search. Of course, it's going across the internet to gather the information. So I'm going to pose the question, what is not knowing? Now, I can choose what type of tone I get the response in. Professional, casual, enthusiastic. Well, I want to get information. I want some ideas, but you'll see you can get it to compose emails for you, blog posts, all sorts of different stuff. You can simply just have a chat with it. That's the first icon there. So I'm going to ask it to generate the draft. Now, just like everything, if I'd posed that question to you and said, what is not knowing, you're probably going to go away, think about it, and come back with an answer. Okay, it might take you minutes, might take you hours. Okay, here it is. It's coming back with the answer here. You know, you might think, right, why couldn't you have chosen short instead of medium on there? Now, it tells me a bit about not knowing is a state of being unaware. And of course, this session is designed to give you awareness. That's what one of the services we provide at Cambium is trying to help people become aware of what they've got, how to use it, and how to help you get value out of the things that you've got and improve your processes and procedures. So let's just go into, so what is the risk then if we are unaware? Okay. I'll leave it as being medium, but by the way, the arrows at the bottom means you can cycle through the conversations that you've actually had with it. And you can actually go and copy those as well and utilize them. You know, I can take this and go and put it into an email, even though I just said I wanted the idea. So here's some of those risks of us being unaware. And this probably sort of backs up some of the things we've put together in our slide deck today, the webinar. We're missing important information or opportunities. You know, if we're unaware of stuff, mistakes, poor decisions, and so on. I won't go through all of those. You can go and have a play with, you know, ChatGPT, as it were, via the Edge browser, as long as you're on the latest update. So it does show the importance of keeping things up to date as well. Okay. Now, before I finish off, I just want to go to one thing, as it were, on my email. Now, remember that form that I filled out earlier on, the questionnaire, and I was clicking on the 2s and 3s and 4s. Well, some of that glue behind the scenes has actually processed that submission that I submitted, and it's gone and sent out a report to me in this instance, of course, the client or the employee, and it's produced a PDF where it's gone and, you know, taken my answers and started to give me a bit of advice on those. So, you know, just from that starting point of gathering information from a form, we've used those Microsoft 365 features to actually produce an end product that's sitting, in this instance, in the client's lap, or inbox at least. Okay, so just to round things out in terms of my final slide, as it were, I do encourage you to email us if you want to find out more about any of the things that we've shown you today. So whether that's training or you want us to work through processes, procedures, ideas you've got on how you can improve things, email Haida or myself. This is posted into the chat, but we'll get it out to you as well too. Also, we've got the links there. Again, they've been posted into the chat, so they're there. So these will take you to our bookings pages, so you can actually see how that works. I'd probably suggest only go and use them if you do really want to book us. Don't just do it as a test on there, because we'll be sitting eagerly waiting to speak to you on that date that you may book on there. So I'd like to thank you. I'm going to hand back to Haida. And
Thank you.
Please do contact us on those contact points.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Lauren. And thank you, everyone who's attended today. I am conscious that we've gone 6 minutes over. We had rehearsed this and we were dot on 5 minutes to go, but clearly we are all excited to share this information with you. I have noticed that there haven't been any questions, and I can only assume that you were being either entertained, being educated, or inspired. Hopefully all three in that respect. Thank you for the acknowledgement just that came through. So look, what we're obviously doing is something different, where we are asking you to come back to us with your questions. So this isn't just the one or two people who ask questions. So thank you once again for being on the call on behalf of Lauren and Ben, the whole of the Kinetics group, the client engagement team. We'd like to thank you for your time today. And one day we will give you back the 6 minutes that we've taken from you today. It was unintentional, but thank you so much for being on the call. We'd love to hear from you. And go ahead and click on that link that you can book an initial discussion with either Ben or myself. We'd love to hear from you and have a bit of a natter and a conversation on a wider scope as well, if there's anything that's on your mind and you want to chat through. With that, I'd like to wish you a fantastic day, rest of the week, and the upcoming weekend as well. With that, I'd like to bid you farewell, and please have a great day. It is great to be on the call. Thank you so much. Cheers then. Kia pai te rā.